The Golden State Killer, California, 1974, 1986. The night was suffocatingly still in Visalia, California, on the 19th of March, 1974. The small town, nestled in the San Joaquin Valley, was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and windows cracked open to catch the evening breeze. But that night, something sinister slipped through the shadows, unnoticed, like a predator stalking prey. In a modest home on a quiet street, a piggy bank lay shattered on the floor, its $50 in coins gone. Drawers were ransacked, women's undergarments strewn about, and a single earring half of a cherished pair vanished into the dark. The homeowner stood frozen, heart pounding, as the realization hit. Someone had been here, violating their sanctuary. This was no ordinary thief. This was the first whisper of the Visalia ransacker, the earliest incarnation of a monster who would soon haunt California for over a decade, leaving a trail of terror, broken lives, and unanswered questions. By 1974, Visalia was unprepared for the wave of dread that began to creep through its neighborhoods. The ransacker struck again and again, over 120 times in 2 years, each burglary more brazen than the last. He didn't care for gold or cash. He took trinkets, blue-chip stamps, historic coins, a single cufflink, a medallion engraved with a name. He'd scatter lingerie across bedrooms, as if taunting his victims with their vulnerability. He climbed fences, slunk through ditches, and moved along park trails like a ghost, always gloved, leaving no fingerprints. Window screens were found neatly stacked on beds, a chilling signature that he'd been inside, planning, watching. In one home, he balanced dishes against a door, a trap to alert him if anyone stirred. The townsfolk began to whisper about a phantom, a boogeyman who knew their routines, their secrets. Fear tightened its grip. Doors were bolted, windows sealed, but he was always one step ahead. On the 11th of September, 1975, the ransacker's shadow grew darker. Claude Snelling, a 45-year-old journalism professor, woke to a sound no parent can ignore, a muffled cry from his 16-year-old daughter's room. He rushed to her, heart thundering, only to find a masked figure dragging her toward the door. Claude lunged, a father's desperation fueling him, but the intruder was ready. A gunshot tore through the night, and Claude collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. His daughter, kicked savagely in the face, screamed as the figure fled into the darkness. Visalia reeled. The ransacker wasn't just a thief. He was a killer. The town's innocence died with Claude Snelling, and the terror was only beginning. By 1976, the predator moved north, leaving Visalia's nightmares behind, but carrying his darkness to Sacramento. Here, he shed his old moniker and became the East Area Rapist, a name that would soon choke the region with fear. On the 18th of June, 1976, in Rancho Cordova, a suburb of Sacramento, a woman woke to a blinding flashlight in her eyes. A masked man stood at her bedside, his voice a guttural hiss. "Don't move, or I'll kill you," he rasped, binding her wrists with twine he'd brought wine he'd left in her home days earlier during a silent, undetected visit. He raped her for hours, pausing to rummage through her kitchen, eating her food, drinking her beer, as if her home were his playground. When he finally left, he took a single ring from her jewelry box, leaving her trembling, her life forever fractured. This was no isolated crime. Over the next 3 years, he struck 38 times in Sacramento alone, targeting women alone, then couples, his methods growing more sadistic, his confidence chilling. He stalked his victims for days, sometimes weeks, learning their schedules, their habits. He'd break in beforehand, unlocking windows, hiding ligatures, studying family photos to know their names. Footprints outside bedroom windows revealed he'd watched them sleep. He'd call them, sometimes weeks before an attack, his voice a low growl or eerie silence, once asking, "Is Ray there?" repeatedly, as if toying with their fear. One woman received silent calls for days, then a chilling promise, "I'm going to kill your husband." The next night, he attacked. He wore ski masks, changed accents, and never used the same jacket or gloves twice. When he targeted couples, he'd bind the man, place him face down, and stack plates on his back, warning, If I hear those plates fall, I'll kill her. Then he'd lead the woman to another room, raping her while her partner lay helpless, paralyzed by the threat. The cruelty was deliberate, the power absolute. Sacramento's quiet suburbs became a battleground of dread. People used to leave their doors unlocked, said D.N. Ho, a prosecutor who later worked the case. But when he started, everyone locked up tight. He changed how we lived. Families slept with lights on, bought guard dogs, installed alarms. Women carried mace. Men kept guns by their beds. Yet he slipped through, a shadow who knew police tactics, who understood how to vanish. Rumors swirled that he was a cop himself, someone trained to outsmart the law. On the 11th of December, 1977, he taunted authorities directly, calling to announce he'd strike on Watt Avenue that night. Police scrambled, but he eluded them, a masked figure melting into the dark. A poem, Excitement's Crave, arrived at the Sacramento Bee, its lines dripping with menace. All those mortals surviving birth, upon facing maturity, take inventory of their worth to prevailing society. Was it his? No one knew, but it felt like his voice, gloating. By 1978, his reach expanded to the Bay Area Concord, San Jose, Danville, Fremont, Walnut Creek. Each attack was a meticulously planned assault, a violation not just of bodies but of trust, of safety. On the 2nd of February, 1978, in Rancho Cordova, Brian and Katie Maggiore, a young couple walking their dog, were gunned down in a hail of bullets. Their deaths, later linked to him, marked a new escalation. He was no longer content with rape and burglary. He was a serial killer, his hunger for destruction growing. The Bay Area attacks ended in July 1979, but the terror didn't stop. He moved south to Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties, where he became the original Night Stalker, a name coined to distinguish him from another killer, Richard Ramirez. Here, his crimes turned even more savage. On the 1st of October, 1979, in Goleta, a couple woke to a flashlight's glare. The intruder bound them, muttering to himself, "I'll kill him." The woman screamed, alerting neighbors, and he fled on a stolen bicycle. But the message was clear. He was evolving, his violence sharpening. 3 months later, in December, a Goleta couple wasn't so lucky. Robert Offerman and Deborah Manning were found shot dead, their bodies bound, her raped before the killing. The murders continued Lyman and Charlene Smith in 1980, bludgeoned in their Ventura home. Keith and Patrice Harrington, newlyweds, beaten to death in Dana Point. Manuela Whitfin in Irvine, raped and killed alone. Each scene was a tableau of horror, the victims bound, the women violated, the men helpless or dead. He'd linger, eating from their fridges, leaving behind knotted shoeless seshes, diamond knot, signaturing his victims to their doom. From 1979 to 1981, 9 more died in Southern California, their lives snuffed out with gunshots or savage beatings. Cherry Domingo and Gregory Sanchez, killed in 1981, were found in their Goleta home, her raped, him shot. The attacks stopped abruptly in 1981, leaving investigators baffled. Had he died? Been arrested? Moved away? The case grew cold, the killer a phantom who'd vanished. But in 1986, he struck one final time. Janelle Cruz, an 18-year-old in Irvine, was bound, raped, and bludgeoned beyond recognition. Her sister, Michelle, later spoke of her dreams college, marriage, a family stolen by a beast who lived a full life while Janelle's ended in a closed-casket funeral. This was his last known crime, and then he was gone, leaving California to grapple with a nightmare that seemed eternal. Who was this monster? For decades, no one knew. He was a specter, a collection of sketches and whispered fears. Composite drawings showed a man with a square jaw, light eyes, and a ski mask, but they led nowhere. His crimes spanned 11 counties, from Sacramento to Orange, each department working in silos. Unaware, the Visalia ransacker, East Area rapist, and original Night Stalker were one man. It wasn't until 2001 that DNA linked the rapes and murders, revealing a single predator, dubbed the Golden State Killer by writer Michelle McNamara, but his identity remained a void, a taunting absence. Victims like Jane Carson Sandler, raped in 1976, lived with scars that never faded. "I was frozen in fear," she later said. Even now, a ski mask or the words "shut up" bring it all back. Survivors locked their doors, checked their windows, and wondered if he was still out there watching. The Golden State Killer's reign was a masterclass in terror, a calculated assault on the human spirit. He didn't just steal or kill, he dismantled lives, sowing paranoia and despair. His knowledge of police tactics, evading patrols, avoiding evidence, using escape routes hinted at a chilling truth. "He was one of us," investigator Paul Holes later said. "A cop, trained to hunt, using it to prey." From 1974 to 1986, he committed at least 13 murders, 51 rapes, and 120 burglaries, each act a deliberate twist of the knife. He called victims years later, his voice a ghostly reminder. "Remember me?" Some believed he'd witnessed trauma as a child. His nephew claimed he saw his sister raped in Germany, that a broken engagement to a woman named Bonnie fueled his rage. One victim recalled him sobbing, muttering, "Bonnie," as he raped her. But these were fragments, not answers. The truth lay buried, waiting for a breakthrough no one could foresee. As the 1980s faded, the case grew colder, the killer's shadow longer. Families mourned, survivors rebuilt. But the fear lingered like a stain. In Visalia, Sacramento, Goleta, and Irvine, communities whispered of the man who'd slipped through their fingers, a predator who'd outsmarted them all. Yet even in the darkest nights, a spark of hope flickered. Science was advancing. DNA, a new tool in 1985, held promise. Investigators clung to it, unaware that it would take 40 years to unmask the monster. The Golden State Killer thought he'd won, that his masks and gloves had erased him, but the evidence he left behind: semen, blood. A single tissue whispered back, waiting for the day it would scream his name. This was just the beginning. The terror he wrought would echo through decades, but so would the resolve to catch him. In the shadows of California's suburbs, a manhunt was brewing, one that would rewrite the rules of justice. The Golden State Killer's story is not just a tale of horror. It's a testament to the unyielding human spirit, to the survivors who carried on, and to the investigators who never gave up. The night may have belonged to him, but the dawn was coming. The sun dipped below the horizon in Sacramento, California, casting long shadows across the suburban sprawl in the spring of 2018. For over 4 decades, the Golden State Killer had been a phantom, a chilling enigma who'd slipped through the cracks of time, leaving behind a legacy of 13 murders, 51 rapes, and over 120 burglaries. His crimes, spanning 1974 to 1986, had haunted California from Visalia to Irvine, a sinister thread weaving through quiet neighborhoods where families once felt safe. But now, a new kind of predator was on the hunt, not a masked figure in the night, but a team of relentless investigators armed with science, grit, and a burning need for justice. The stage was set for a high-stakes chase, a cat-and-mouse game that would electrify the nation and bring a monster into the light. This is the story of how the Golden State Killer's empire of terror began to crumble. A tale pulsing with intrigue, breakthroughs, and the intoxicating thrill of the chase. The 1990s had been a graveyard for the case. Leads dried up, witnesses aged, and the killer's DNA collected from rape kits and crime scene sat in freezers. A silent scream with no one to hear it. But by the early 2000s, a flicker of hope emerged. In 2001, forensic scientist Mary Hong in Orange County linked the East Area rapist's rapes to the original Night Stalker's murders through DNA, proving they were the work of one man. The revelation was a bombshell, uniting fragmented investigations across 11 counties. The Golden State Killer, as Michelle McNamara christened him in her 2013 Los Angeles Magazine article, was no longer a collection of shadows, but a singular, terrifying force. Yet his identity remained a void, a taunting question mark. Composite sketches a square-jawed man with light eyes, maybe 5'10", maybe a cobbled nowhere. Survivors like Jane Carson Sandler raped in 1976, clung to hope but lived with dread. "Every night, I checked my locks," she said. Was he still out there watching? The case was cold, but the fire to catch him never died. Enter Paul Holes, a Contra Costa County investigator with a hawk's eye and a dogged obsession. In the early 2000s, Holes dusted off the case files, poring over yellowed reports and faded Polaroids. He wasn't just chasing a killer, he was chasing a ghost who'd outsmarted entire police departments. Holes noticed patterns, others missed the killer's use of diamond knots, his pre-attack break-ins, his uncanny knowledge of police tactics. "This guy was trained," Holes told colleagues, his voice tight with conviction. "He's one of us." The theory that the killer was a cop gained traction, fueled by his evasion of patrols and his habit of striking near police stations. Holes scoured old Visalia records, where the ransacker had shot Claude Snelling in 1975, and found a lead. A former cop named Joseph D'Angelo, briefly stationed nearby, but D'Angelo's name was one of thousands, a needle in a haystack. The trail went cold again, and Holes slammed his fist on his desk. The frustration, a living thing. The game changer came in the 2010s, not from a smoky interrogation room, but from the gleaming world of genetic genealogy. DNA technology had evolved, and companies like 23andMe and Ancestry.com were turning family trees into digital maps. In 2013, Holes teamed up with genealogist Barbara Ray Venter, a soft-spoken woman with a mind like a steel trap. They had the killer's DNA, a pristine profile from a 1,980 rape kit, but no name. Ray Venter suggested uploading it to GED Match, a public genealogy database where people shared their DNA to find distant cousins. "If he's got relatives out there, we'll find them," she said, her eyes gleaming with possibility. Holes hesitated. Uploading a killer's DNA to a civilian site was uncharted territory, ethically murky, but the victims' faces haunted him. He gave the green light, and the hunt took a electrifying turn. In January 2018, the DNA hit pay dirt. The killer's profile matched distant relatives on GED Match, third and fourth cousins scattered across the US. Ray. Venter's fingers flew across her keyboard, building family trees backward, branch by branch, like a detective unraveling a cosmic puzzle. The team traced lineages to a great-grandparent in the 1800s, then forward, narrowing the suspect pool to men born between 1940 and 1960, living in California during the crime spree. The list shrank to dozens, then a handful. One name kept surfacing: Joseph James D'Angelo, a 72-year-old retiree living in Citrus Heights, a Sacramento suburb. D'Angelo had been a cop in Exeter, near Visalia, from 1973 to 1976, and in Auburn, near Sacramento, until 1979, when he was fired for shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. The timeline fit like a glove. Holes's pulse raced. "This is him," he whispered to himself, staring at D'Angelo's DMV photo, a square jaw, light eyes, the ghost of a younger predator. But DNA from a database wasn't enough for a warrant. They needed D'Angelo's DNA, fresh and indisputable. The team went into overdrive, tailing him like hawks. D'Angelo lived a quiet life, a grandfatherly figure tinkering in his garage, mowing his lawn, chatting with neighbors about his rose garden. "He was the guy you'd wave to," a neighbor later said, "the last person you'd suspect." But Holes saw the monster beneath. On the 18th of April, 2018, investigators watched D'Angelo leave a Hobby Lobby, sipping a soda. They pounced, grabbing the cup from a trash can. The DNA was a partial match, not enough. Days later, they staked out his home, heartbeats thundering, and collected a tissue he discarded in his garbage. The lab results came back on the 23rd of April. A perfect match. The Golden State Killer wasn't a myth anymore. He was a man, flesh and blood, living among them. The tension was unbearable, the stakes astronomical. On the 24th of April, 2018, SWAT teams surrounded D'Angelo's tidy ranch-style house. Neighbors gawked, phones out, as officers in tactical gear moved in. D'Angelo was in his driveway, tinkering with a motorcycle, when Holes approached, badge in hand. "Joseph D'Angelo?" Holes asked, his voice steady but his blood roaring. D'Angelo looked up, his face a mask of calm. "Yeah," he said, as if expecting a neighborly chat. "You're under arrest for murder," Holes said, cuffs snapping shut. D'Angelo didn't flinch, didn't fight. He was led away, a 72-year-old man in a polo shirt. The boogeyman, unmasked at last. The news exploded across California, then the world. "Golden State Killer Caught," screamed headlines. Survivors wept, investigators embraced, and a state exhaled after 44 years of fear. Inside D'Angelo's home, the truth unfolded like a horror show. His life was a chilling dichotomy: family, photos, fishing trophies, and a freezer stocked with roasts, juxtaposed with a dark past. Investigators found no trophies from his crimes, no ski masks or knotted shoelaces. But they didn't need them. The DNA was ironclad, linking him to 8 murders and 45 rapes, with more to come. D'Angelo's daughters, now adults, were stunned. His ex-wife, Sharon Huddle, a divorce attorney, had no inkling. "He was a good dad," one daughter said, her voice breaking. But survivors like Chris Pedretti, raped in 1976, saw the truth. "He lived 2 lives," she said. "One for his family, one for us." D'Angelo's nephew later revealed a childhood trauma witnessing his sister's rape in Germany, hinting at the rage that fueled him. A broken engagement to a woman named Bonnie, mentioned during a 1,977 rape, added another layer. "I hate you, Bonnie," he'd sobbed mid-assault. The pieces fit, but the why remained a gnawing void. The arrest was a high, a crescendo of justice, but the drama wasn't over. D'Angelo's silence was maddening. He offered no confession, no remorse, just a blank stare in court. Prosecutors across 11 counties built a case, weaving DNA, survivor testimony, and old police reports into a net he couldn't escape. On the 29th of June, 2020, D'Angelo, frail in an orange jumpsuit, shuffled into a Sacramento courtroom. COVID masks hid faces, but the air crackled with anticipation. He'd cut a deal, plead guilty to 13 murders and 13 rape-related charges, admit to dozens of uncharged crimes, and get life without parole, sparing him the death penalty. Survivors filled the room, their eyes burning through him. One by one, they spoke. Jane Carson Sandler, Gay Hardwick, Margaret Wardlow, recounting their terror, their resilience. "You took my innocence," Carson, Sandler said, voice steady, "but not my spirit." D'Angelo, head bowed, said nothing until the end. "I'm truly sorry," he croaked, his voice thin, unconvincing. The room seethed. Was it real or another mask? On the 21st of August, 2020, the gavel fell. D'Angelo, now 74, was sentenced to 11 consecutive life terms. No parole. Judge Michael Bowman's words were a blade. "The defendant deserves no mercy." Cheers erupted outside the courthouse. Survivors embraced, tears mixing with triumph. Paul Holes, now retired, stood quietly, the weight of decades lifting. "We got him," he said, a smile breaking through. California reclaimed its nights, its peace. The Golden State Killer was no longer a shadow. He was a man in a cage, his power stripped, his name a curse. The case rewrote history, proving genetic genealogy could crack the unsolvable. It sparked debates: privacy versus justice, but for survivors, it was a miracle. "I slept with the lights off for the first time," Chris Pedretti said, her voice soft but fierce. Yet the story doesn't end here. Questions linger like ghosts. Did D'Angelo act alone? Were there more victims, unlinked by DNA? Why did he stop in 1986? Some say he aged out, his body too frail for the prowling. Others whisper he never stopped, just hid better. His silence fuels the mystery, a final taunt from a man who thrived on control. But the hunt for answers continues, driven by the same fire that caught him. The Golden State Killer's reign is over, but his story is a siren call, pulling us into the shadows where truth and terror collide. The next chapter waits, pulsing with secrets yet to be unearthed, and the promise that justice, however delayed, will always find its mark. The Sacramento courtroom buzzed with a restless energy on the 21st of August, 2020, as the gavel's echo faded. Joseph James D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer, sat shackled, his 74-year-old frame hunched in an orange jumpsuit, sentenced to 11 life terms without parole. The monster who terrorized California from 1,974 to 198,613 murders, 51 rapes, over 120 burglaries was caged at last. His reign of fear reduced to a footnote in a judge's ledger, but the air crackled with something unfinished, a hunger for more than punishment. Survivors, investigators, and a nation gripped by the saga wanted answers. Why did he do it? How did he evade capture for so long? And what secrets still lurked in the shadows of his silence? This final chapter of the Golden State Killer's story is a pulse-pounding dive into the aftermath, a roller coaster of revelations, lingering mysteries, and the electrifying triumph of human resilience. The curtain may have fallen on D'Angelo, but the stage was set for a finale that would captivate, haunt, and inspire. The sentencing was a seismic moment, a crescendo after decades of dread. Outside the Sacramento County Courthouse, survivors embraced, their tears a mix of relief and defiance. Jane Carson Sandler, raped in 1976, stood tall, her voice a beacon. "He took my safety, but not my strength." Chris Pedretti, attacked at 15, laughed through her tears, saying, "I slept with my windows open last night." The crowd, families, reporters, even strangers drawn to the drama cheered, as if exorcising a demon. Paul Holes, the investigator whose obsession cracked the case, leaned against a wall, his eyes distant but gleaming. "It's over," he said, though his tone hinted at doubts. The DNA that unmasked D'Angelo in 2018, plucked from a discarded tissue, had rewritten justice, proving genetic genealogy could hunt monsters. But as the champagne popped, a question gnawed. What else was out there, waiting to be uncovered? D'Angelo's silence was a taunt, a final flex of control. In court, his mumbled, "I'm truly sorry," rang hollow, a script read by a man who'd sobbed Bonnie during a 1,977 rape, who'd called victims years later to hiss, "Remember me?" Survivors wanted a confession, a window into his twisted mind. Was it rage from a broken engagement to Bonnie Colwell in 1970? Trauma from witnessing his sister's rape in Germany as a child? Or was he simply born to destroy? Psychologists speculated he was a psychopath. His cop training Exeter PD from 1,973 to 1,976, Auburn PD until 1979 honed into a predator's toolkit. He used his badge as a mask, said profiler John Douglas, who'd studied the case. He was the wolf in the shepherd's clothing. But D'Angelo gave nothing, his pale eyes staring through the courtroom like a void. The hunt for answers turned to his past, and the revelations were chilling. In Citrus Heights, neighbors reeled, recalling Joe, the guy who'd barbecue ribs and fix their cars. "He was grumpy but harmless," said one, shaking her head. Yet clues had been there, hidden in plain sight. In 1979, Auburn PD fired D'Angelo for stealing a hammer and dog repellent items for a burglar who'd used both to stalk. His ex-wife, Sharon Huddle, a divorce attorney, lived with him during the Sacramento rapes, oblivious. He'd leave at night saying it was work, she later told investigators, her voice tight. His daughters, now grown, remembered a strict but loving dad who'd take them fishing. Yet one recalled his rages, slamming doors, muttering about screw-ups at work. A nephew, Wes Ryland, dropped a bombshell. At 10, D'Angelo had watched his sister Constance raped by 2 airmen in Germany. He never forgot it, Ryland said. It changed him. The puzzle grew, each piece a spark of intrigue, but the full picture stayed maddeningly out of reach. The drama escalated as investigators dug deeper, chasing loose ends that promised to rewrite the narrative. In 2021, a cold case team in Tulare County, Vesalia's home, reopened the 1,975 Claude Snelling murder. D'Angelo hadn't been charged, DNA was lacking, but witnesses from the Visalia ransacker days were re-interviewed. A retired cop, Bill McGowan, who'd shot at the ransacker in 1975, recalled a detail. The suspect's bike had a police radio. It was him, McGowan said, his voice trembling. A cop, playing us. The team scoured D'Angelo's Exeter PD records, finding he'd worked night shifts during ransacker burglaries, his alibis thin. A 1,974 report surfaced. D'Angelo, off-duty, had been seen near a ransacked home, claiming he was checking on a noise. The coincidence was too sharp, the tension palpable. Was Visalia the killer's proving ground, where he honed his craft before Sacramento? The high point came in 2022, when genealogist Barbara Ray Venter, the wizard behind D'Angelo's 2018 unmasking, announced a new lead. Using GED match, she'd found a distant cousin linked to an unsolved 1,977 rape in Stockton, not yet tied to D'Angelo. The victim, now 70, had kept a scarf the attacker left behind, stored in a hope chest. DNA testing was underway, and the air buzzed with anticipation. If it's him, it's another nail in his coffin, Ray Venter said, her eyes alight. The test results dropped in March 2023. A match. The Stockton rape, plus 2 others in Modesto, were added to D'Angelo's tally, pushing his confirmed rapes to 54. Prosecutors considered new charges, but D'Angelo's life sentence was already airtight. The victory wasn't legal, it was emotional, a surge of vindication for victims who'd waited decades to be believed. The resolution wasn't just in convictions, it was in the ripple effects. The Golden State Killer case birthed a revolution. Genetic genealogy, once a hobbyist tool, became a law enforcement juggernaut. By 2025, over 400 cold cases, murders, rapes, abductions had been solved using GEDmatch and similar databases. In California alone, 12 serial killers were identified, their DNA betraying them long after they thought they'd won. But the triumph came with shadows. Privacy advocates cried foul, warning that uploading DNA to public sites risked abuse. Today, it's killers, said ACLU attorney Vera Eidelman. Tomorrow, it's anyone the government dislikes. The debate raged, but for survivors like Gay Hardwick, raped in 1978, it was worth it. My privacy was stolen in my own bed, she said. This gave it back. The case's legacy pulsed through culture, too, fueling a true crime obsession. Michelle McNamara's book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, became a 2020 HBO docuseries, its haunting score and survivor interviews gripping millions. Bookstores overflowed with Golden State Killer titles, from Holz's Unmasked to Ray Venter's I Know Who You Are. Podcasts dissected every angle, from D'Angelo's knot tying to his eerie phone calls. On X, posts exploded with theories. Was he active post 1,986? Did he have an accomplice? One user, at CrimeSleuth77, shared a 1,987 Irvine police report of a prowler matching D'Angelo's MO, sparking a frenzy. The public's thirst was insatiable, each tidbit a spark in a wildfire of curiosity. Yet the most gripping drama was human. Survivors rebuilt, their courage, a beacon. Margaret Wardlow, raped at 13 in 1977, became a therapist, helping trauma victims. He didn't define me, she said, her smile fierce. Debbie Domingo, whose mother Cherry was murdered in 1981, founded a victims advocacy group. I turned my pain into purpose, she told a 2024 TED Talk, earning a standing ovation. Even Paul Holes, retired but restless, launched a podcast, The DNA of Murder, Chasing New Cases. There are more D'Angelos out there, he warned, his voice low, magnetic. Their stories wove a tapestry of defiance, proving the killer's shadow couldn't outlast their light. The final twist came in 2025, as D'Angelo, now 79, sat in Corcoran State Prison, his health failing. A guard leaked a story. D'Angelo had been caught carving Bonnie into his cell wall, his fingers trembling. Was it remorse, obsession, or a final taunt? No one knew, but it reignited the mystery. On X, users speculated wildly. One posting, he's still playing games. What else is he hiding? Investigators reopened old tips, chasing a rumor that D'Angelo had stashed a journal during his Auburn PD days, detailing his crimes. A search of his old locker, now a storage unit, found nothing but dust, yet the hunt persisted. He'll take secrets to his grave, Holes said, but we'll keep digging. The Golden State Killer's story ends not with a period, but a question mark, a siren call to the curious. D'Angelo is gone, his power stripped, but his crimes echo, a reminder that evil can hide behind a neighbor's smile. Yet so does hope in science, in survivors, in the relentless pursuit of truth. California's nights are brighter now, its doors unlocked, but the saga lingers, a seductive whisper of secrets yet to break. The chase is over, but the story, it's alive, pulsing, waiting for the next chapter to unfold in the shadows where monsters and heroes collide. The Sacramento sky burned crimson as the sun sank on May 2, 2025, casting an eerie glow over Citrus Heights, where Joseph D'Angelo's unassuming ranch house still stood, now a grim landmark. The Golden State Killer, unmasked in 2018, was rotting in Corcoran State Prison, his 11 life sentences a testament to justice's long reach. 13 murders, 51 rapes, over 120 burglaries, reign of terror from 1,974 to 1,986 had scarred California, from Visalia to Irvine, leaving survivors like Jane Carson Sandler and Chris Pedretti to rebuild from ashes. Yet, even with D'Angelo caged, the story pulsed with life, a seductive mystery that refused to die, whispers of hidden crimes, buried secrets, and a killer's unbroken silence fueled a new chapter on crackling with intrigue, high-stakes discoveries, and a tantalizing open end that beckons you to the shadows. This is the Golden State Killer's final act, a tale that will grip your soul and leave you hungry for more. In the years since D'Angelo's 2020 sentencing, the case had become a cultural juggernaut. Michelle McNamara's I'll Be Gone in the Dark was a bestseller, its HBO series a haunting obsession. Podcasts like The DNA of Murder by Paul Holes dissected every knot, every taunting phone call. On X, true crime sleuths swap theories. Did he have an accomplice? Why stop in 1986? A 2024 post by @ShadowHunter22, claiming a 1,987 Stockton Prowler matched D'Angelo's MO, went viral, racking up 10,000 reposts. The public's fascination was a fever, and investigators fed it, driven by a nagging truth. D'Angelo's DNA had closed 54 rapes and 13 murders, but dozens of Visalia ransacker burglaries and other assaults remained unlinked. "He's not done haunting us," Holes said, his voice low, magnetic. "There's more out there." The spark came in late 2024, when a retired Visalia detective, Maria Flores, stumbled on a dusty evidence box from 1,975. Inside was a single cufflink, stolen during a ransacker burglary, inscribed with J.D. Joseph D'Angelo's initials. Flores' hands trembled as she called Holes. "This ties him to Visalia," she said, her voice electric. The cufflink, overlooked for decades, wasn't enough for a murder charge in Claude Snelling's 1,975 death. But it was a bombshell. Holes flew to Visalia, where the team dusted off 120 ransacker case files. A pattern emerged. 17 burglaries involved, stolen earrings, rings, or medallions, all unrecovered. "He kept trophies," Holes said, his eyes narrowing. "They're somewhere." The hunt was on, and the tension was a live wire. Was D'Angelo's secret stash proof of his earliest crime hidden in plain sight? The drama surged in January 2025, when a tip flooded the Sacramento Sheriff's hotline. A woman, cleaning her late father's Auburn home, found a locked box under floorboards. Her father, a cop who'd worked with D'Angelo in the 1970s, died in 1990. Inside the box, a tarnished ring, a woman's earring, and a medallion engraved, "To my love, 1,974. The items matched descriptions from Visalia and Sacramento burglaries. "I got chills," said investigator Lisa Carter, cataloging the find. The box also held a faded photo of a young D'Angelo, arm around a woman Bonnie Colwell, his ex-fiancée. Was this his trophy cache, or a red herring? The lab rushed DNA tests, and the wait was agonizing. "If it's his, we've got him for Visalia," Holes told his team, his voice tight. "If not, we're chasing ghosts." The stakes soared as a new player entered. Sarah Thompson, a 38-year-old genealogist who trained under Barbara Ray Venter. Thompson, with a knack for untangling DNA webs, was scouring GED Match for more of D'Angelo's crimes. In February 2025, She flagged a 1,988 San Jose cold case rape with a partial DNA profile, never linked to D'Angelo. The victim, now 62, recalled a masked man muttering "Bonnie" mid-assault, a detail that sent shivers down Thompson's spine. "It's him," she told Holes, her voice trembling with excitement. The San Jose PD exhumed the rape kit, preserved in a freezer since Reagan's presidency. The DNA test was a gamble degraded. Samples could fail, but the possibility of proving D'Angelo didn't stop in 1986 was intoxicating. The lab worked around the clock, and the nation held its breath, glued to X updates and CNN tickers. The high point hit in March 2025, when the DNA results dropped like thunder. The San Jose rape was D'Angelo's, his 55th confirmed assault. The trophy box yielded traces of his DNA on the ring, tying him to a 1,976 Sacramento burglary. The cufflink too bore his sweat, linking him to Visalia's ransacker spree. "We've got him," Holes shouted, slamming his desk. The discoveries were a triumph, proof that D'Angelo's shadow stretched further than anyone knew. Sacramento DA Thien Ho called a press conference, his voice booming. "Joseph D'Angelo thought he'd outsmarted us. He was wrong." Survivors wept, their validation hard. 1. Debbie Domingo, whose mother Cherry was murdered in 1981, clutched a photo of her mom, whispering, "We did it." The crowd outside roared, a wave of catharsis washing over California. But the climax wasn't the end, it was a springboard. D'Angelo, frail at 79, sat silent in Corcoran, his health fading. A guard reported he'd been sketching a chilling image of a masked figure in a suburban yard, captioned, "The Night." Was it a confession, a taunt, or delirium? Holes, now a consultant, got a tip from an inmate. D'Angelo had bragged about a journal hidden during his Auburn PD days, detailing his crimes. A search of an old precinct storage unit found nothing but cobwebs, but the rumor ignited X. "He's playing us from his cell," posted at Crime Sleuth 77, sparking 15,000 likes. Thompson, meanwhile, found a new GED match heat a distant cousin linked to a 1,990 Fresno home invasion, post-dating D'Angelo's known crimes. The victim described a prowler with a cop stance. No DNA left behind. "He was 45 then," Thompson said, her eyes wide. "He could have kept going." The resolution was electric, but incomplete, a masterstroke of suspense. The new evidence strengthened calls for Visalia charges. Though prosecutors hesitated, D'Angelo's life sentence was ironclad, and his health was crumbling. Survivors found closure in community, forming a network led by Margaret Wardlow, raped at 13 in 1977. "We're not victims," she told a 2025 rally, her voice fierce. "We're warriors." Their stories of healing, of turning pain into power lit up the darkness. Genetic genealogy, now a global tool, solved 500 cold cases by 2025, but privacy battles loom. "We're on a tightrope," said ACLU's Vera Eidelman. "Justice, but at what cost?" For survivors, the cost was worth it. "He stole my peace," said Gay Hardwick, raped in 1978. DNA gave it back. Yet the story doesn't end it. Twists, slithers, beckons. Did D'Angelo act alone, or did an accomplice lurk, as some 1970s witnesses claimed? Was the Fresno case his, or a copycat? And where is that journal, if it exists? D'Angelo's silence is a locked door, but the key is out there, buried in California's shadows. On X, a user posted a grainy 1,991 photo of a Citrus Heights man resembling D'Angelo, lurking near a crime scene. "He never stopped," the caption read, chilling thousands. Holes, graying but relentless, vowed to keep digging. "There's another chapter," he said, his smile sly, "and we'll find it." This saga of terror and triumph leaves you teetering, craving more. The Golden State Killer's secrets are a siren's call, luring you to the edge of truth and terror. What lies beyond the shadows? What final truths will break free? Stay tuned, because the next chapter darker, wilder, pulsing with revelations waits in our next story. Follow our channel, dive into the mystery, and uncover what's next in this electrifying tale. The night isn't over, and neither is the hunt.